It's the early 2000s, and we are movie producers here to pitch another Star Trek film to Paramount. Ooh. Cue the intro.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Mirror Movie Universe podcast. My name is Nate. I'm one half of the shindig of the show that you see before you. One half of the hosts, and the other half is sitting across the aisle and across the country from me. He is Dan. Say hi, Dan.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're excited for this one. This is going to be fun.
Yeah,
or terrible. We never know.
It might be fun because it's terrible. You never know with these. This is one of our pitch episodes. It's one of the more rare ones where we get to the end of a series and we pitch a new movie that might fit in with the timeline that we've created. It could come after the series. It could replace one in the middle. It could come out of left field and do whatever. So buckle up. This should be a fun run. First, we'll start with Dan as we always do. Dan, you have a Star Trek movie for me, I hear.
I do. I'm in my continuity keeping the 4 TNG films, assuming that we fixed them up, especially the last one.
Yeah.
And so I am doing a follow-on to that called Star Trek Invasion! Exclamation mark.
Okay.
I'm bringing in a ton of people here. None of them are new actors. I came into this with one assumption. I came into it assuming that Brent Spiner would not want to return. At the time, he said he was done with Data, and that Patrick Stewart would not want to as well. After Nemesis, he was like, I'm done for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that we could do a send-off with TNG or set up more adventures, I am choosing the latter and setting up more adventures.
Okay.
So buckle up. Here we go. We open up with a Starfleet science ship. It's running away. It's getting overtaken. It is bordered by other Starfleet personnel. Oh my gosh, what's happening with this? And they send an SOS before we cut away. Worf is going to be the main star of this. He's chilling with Grilka and Martok. Deep cuts, man.
Yeah.
Janeway pops up on a little holocommunicator and is like, Mr. Worf, I need your help. And he's like, I'm doing whatever. I'm an ambassador.
I'm predisposed.
Now.
Yeah.
And he's like, surely you have other people. And she's like, I do. I've sent them all. I have not heard from them. You are not my first choice. You are like my 10th choice.
Okay.
All of my other people have disappeared. Ooh. So she lays out that it's rumors that the Borg have assimilated a changeling.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So the changelings from Deep Space Nine, which you should watch.
So the changelings can look like anything, become anything, and of course the Borg are this antagonistic force. So it's kind of bringing everybody together. So Worf doesn't really have a ship or a crew or anything, so he sets out to recruit some folks. He has to get the Defiant back. I'm going to have him on the Defiant here.
Yeah, he buys tiny little ship, nowhere near as powerful as the Enterprise. Little underdog of a ship. Yeah,
not powerful at all, but it does have some cloaking technology, right? So he buys it off of Quark, who's using it to do some smuggling. And we get like a great bartering scene where Worf is like, the fate of the galaxy is at hand. And Quark's like, well, if it's the fate of the galaxy, then only 9,000 Latinum bars instead of 10, you know?
I should have listened to my cousin Galen. He said, Quark, sell weapons. You'll never go broke. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I like it so far. Yeah.
And then who are you going to get to investigate this, right? Well, who knows more about the changelings than Dr. Bashir? So we get him in, and of course we get the other half of that, his partner and friend O'Brien. So he also knows the Defiant really well, so he's going to be our engineer. And then who knows more about the Borg than Seven of Nine and the holodeck, they're the holographic doctor. I don't know what else to call him. And also they're joined on this by Ensign Ro, who's not an ensign or anything anymore, but I love that character and I wanted somebody else from TNG. So we're going to see she's in this.
100%. I like the actress too. She also showed up in another Ronald D. Moore thing,
Battlestar Galactica. Yes, she's fantastic. So they quickly they go on some investigating, and they deduce that it's not actually the Borg who have assimilated a changeling. It is instead these weird parasitic creature things from season 1 TNG episode Conspiracy. These like bug things that crawl into you and they almost took over Starfleet, and like getting shot and they're exploding, and it's really gross.
That's the one episode where like they blow up a guy at the end. That's all I remember about it. Like he explodes with this worm inside of it.
Super gross, right?
Yeah. It's terrible.
So we have like at Starfleet Command, Janeway and Tuvok are trying to figure out kind of who is real, like who they are and who has been taken over by these people. They're aided by Grilka and Martok, because why not? They have a bit of a standoff with Admiral Ross from Deep Space Nine. They kill him, they explode him, but they realize that Starfleet is pretty much invaded at this point. It's pretty well taken over.
Yeah.
Worf and the crew realize that there's a Starfleet ship that is infested with these things, and Bashir and the holodoc say, if you can capture one of them, maybe we can dissect it, maybe we can learn about it, blah blah blah. So they beam over there and they're trying to figure out who they can grab. Worf at one point thinks that he knows who's a creature, and he stabs some random crewman, but it's just a random crewman, and he's like bleeding out and everything. Because in the episode, there was not really a sciencey way to realize who was who. They just kind of deduced it. So they eventually do capture one. They get them off the ship, and they're Bashir and the holodoc are working on this and stuff. And then Janeway, we come back to Janeway and her crew. They had to Deep Space Nine. Maybe we see Kira here or something. I don't know, whatever. They realize that there is some Starfleet ships on a very strange course, and they're kind of moving in almost a protection detail to get something. They realize it's like some like mother ship that has tons of these gross parasitic creature things. Meanwhile, back on the Defiant, we realize that this creature has infected one of our crewmen.
Oh,
okay. The only thing we are sure of is that it is not the holodoc, because he's a hologram, but it could be any one of them. And so you get a really tense standoff moment. Nobody knows what to do, and they're all pointing phasers at each other, and Ro is going to shoot somebody, and somebody's going to shoot Worf, and eventually shots are fired, and it is Bashir. And we realize that he's been infected by this thing when he was like dissecting it, and he's an augment, so he's like able to kind of talk or whatever at the end. And you have a really poignant moment where O'Brien looks at his friend and he's dying, and then he has to just like shoot him and explode him.
What?
Yeah.
You're killing Bashir in the same way that random guy in the okay. All right.
I think that it gives O'Brien's character a nice moment. Anyway. So then they head off to stop this big, gross alien ship thing. And Worf calls up his friend Riker, captain now of the USS Titan. So he sends him kind of a coded message. He's like, do you remember when we did blah, blah, blah? And Riker's able to kind of deduce what's going on, right? So they've been out on some assignment. They aren't infected. Riker's sure that none of their crew is infected. We get Riker, Troy, Wesley Crusher is the engineer. First officer Kim from Voyager, he's been promoted. So that'll make some people happy.
Oh, thank God. That's something I don't have in my pitch, but I should, because
just promote him somewhere.
Because in the entire series that he's in, it's not even that he doesn't get promoted from ensign throughout the entire series. His only character development is that he changes from playing clarinet to saxophone, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right, no, I'm on board.
So, and Nog is at the helm. He's flying the ship. So that's the USS Titan crew. So they fly up to this convoy of Starfleet ships, and they're like faking a reactor leak because they want to maintain quarantine and kind of slow everything down. And Riker's on there, and he's like, we got it under control. We'll let you know, And Wesley's like, oh, if I do the thing with the reverse polarity, it'll send off this signal, whatever. I don't know. So they're doing all of that kind of stuff, right? So then Worf and the Defiant crew get into this alien ship. They like fly it in cloaked, and they get off, and they're just like Worf has this amazing like bat'leth thing, and he's just chopping these things up at the same time. Budget's not an issue in this timeline. So Riker is outside, just like he's like, all right, well, Worf's inside, so fire, and he's just like 2 or 3 Starfleet ships, and he's taking them all on and blowing them up and everything, because he's William Riker. Why not? It's great. Naga's doing some stuff. Lieutenant Kim is doing stuff, or First Officer Kim now. It's fantastic. Worf has like some big face-off moment with this giant alien bug creature, and he's just hacking it up and everything. So they win. They beat it. Of course they do. It's a Starfleet movie, but of course it comes at a cost. Riker is really sad by destroying all these Starfleet ships. Worf and his new crew kind of are together in the holodeck. Doctor gives like a really sarcastic speech at the end. He's like, well, congratulations. You've just committed genocide on an alien species and killed thousands of others in the process. And so you get like a really somber moment. And then I want to see a scene with kind of everybody together mourning Bashir's death, because I said we needed a funeral scene for Data. So they're all mourning
you
him
sang we needed a funeral scene for Data. That there's a difference. All right.
Yes.
But yeah.
Beautifully. And Keiko is there with O'Brien, and they wonder at the end, they're like, I wonder if we got them all. I wonder if all the parasites are gone, or if there's still some out there. And then maybe you cut to like Tom Paris and Belena Torres like just blasting a bunch of these bugs like some other place or something. And then we roll credits. So yeah, that's it. I basically was trying to set up like 3 different directions it can go. You can either have it be movies or TV shows. You can do the USS Titan, you can do Worf and his crew, or you can do like Starfleet Administration with Janeway and Tuvok and stuff. That's it.
Okay, so yawn. I'll start not yawn to your film. I'm just tired.
But, it's so boring.
No, so much stuff happens in it.
I know. So, this is the most notes I've ever had for a pitch.
It's pretty on par with the crap that I usually churn out. But I only have 2 notes. I have 2 notes of stuff I do differently, and 2 notes of stuff that I really really like. Stuff I do differently. So Bashir, I don't like that Bashir dies in this way.
I felt like somebody had to. So
somebody does.
Who would you change it to?
I mean, out of everyone in Deep Space Nine, I would kill the one person who is more of an expert than Bashir, and I'd off Odo. He's not.
No, you can't. He's part of the Great Link. This is after that
maybe
movie.
He comes back or something. I know.
Well, I guess we could have him come back. Why not? Yeah.
But there's that, and then the only other thing is that you had Wesley as an engineer. I like everyone else's placement. But I've always kind of thought that Wesley Crusher was more. He was destined for greater things than being a ship's engineer or something like that. So I don't know who I'd have. Maybe Belana Torres in between. Have a scene where Worf meets Belana Torres or whatever. That's fine. But I'll tell you what,
there's a deleted scene from Nemesis where Wesley Crusher is the new engineer of the Titan. Yeah, they brought him back and everything, and then they just cut it.
Okay. Well, I'm not surprised. They did a lot of other stuff to self-sabotage Nemesis, but yeah, I like this because it's like our greatest hits album of all of the secondary crew characters.
Yeah.
Which it should not come as a surprise to you and me, because like we had this computer game when we were kids where it was the only Star Trek game we had. I don't even know what it was called. It was like a fleet building thing, and you could build a ship and select. I don't know. You could build a ship and then assign crew to it. It was very boring. Like it just like moved a little thing across the screen on a mission.
Yeah.
Wasn't action packed or anything, but like the whole fun part of that was selecting crew and thinking about as a kid who's seen some of the series and stuff, like, oh, what would it be like if so such and such was on a ship with such and such?
Yeah.
I've had this conversation with our cousin Graham too, and be like, hey, assemble a crew of the, of anything. Who do you pick? I think that the funniest thing that we've ever come out of that is that one of us chose Garrick from Deep Space Nine as ship's counselor, um, because he doesn't give a crap about anyone.
No.
So someone would be like, oh, on the ship, like, oh, I'm having a really bad time with my spouse or whatever. And Garrick would just be like, well, that's your problem, isn't it? Anyway. So yeah, it reminds me of the kinds of things we used to think about as kids.
Yeah. It's nothing but fan service. It's just you want to see all the characters together in one movie? Here you go.
The central conflict is about like who is controlled by this thing and all of this. And it reminds me a lot of one of my favorite moments from Deep Space Nine, when Sisko is uncovering some plot on Earth because there might be changelings impersonating people in Earth's government and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the episode, he's like sitting in a park, and Chief O'Brien, his engineer, sits down next to him, and he starts talking to him. And then he realizes that Chief O'Brien isn't on Earth. He's back on Deep Space Nine. And he's talking to this changeling. And the changeling is like, what if I told you that there were only 4 changelings on Earth right now? There were only 4 of us. And they're freaking out because it might be thousands. And so that sort of like fear is played into really, really well in Star Trek. So if you run that gauntlet, that's another thing I like about your pitch.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I tried to go kind of old school horror, like The Thing or Invasion of the Body Snatchers or whatever, and make it a little bit like, I don't want it to be like, oh, it's somebody acting like you. I want it to be like, you're still you, but you're controlled by something.
Yeah.
But how do we stop it? How do we know who's who? How do we save everybody?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, that's good. I like a lot of the little moments that you've telegraphed in where like Worf kills somebody and realizes that it's not, because it adds real stakes to this sort of thing. Yes, I enjoy this.
I enjoy
this with the caveats that I have listed.
Out of all of the different ways that it could go, which like series or whatever would you be most excited to see after that? Would you like to see like Janeway at all at Starfleet Command? Would you like to see Worf and the Defiant doing like clandestine missions, or would you like to see like the USS Titan?
It's between Janeway and Worf. It's like the Titan is intriguing, but as much as I'd love to see Harry Kim not be an ensign, but I mean, Worf leading clandestine stuff is some of the best parts of Deep Space Nine. Happens a lot in season 7, and I mean, you could take it and make it something that we've never really done with Star Trek, and have a Klingon show, and be a lot more based in that. And I think you could have a lot of fun with that concept. I think that's the one I choose. Okay.
Well, cool. We'll just greenlight that while we're at it. So Star Trek Worf, the series.
Yeah. Well, 100%. He's my favorite Klingon. How could I not pick him? Nice.
All right, Nate. Well, what is your pitch? So you have a movie for me?
Oh yeah, I do. So there's a whole bunch of Star Trek non-canon stuff out there, books and all of this sort of thing. I'm more of a Star Wars guy, but there's a lot of like, books and stuff, novels that are out there. There's some that are better than others. There's one that's pretty good that's just about a poker game on Deep Space Nine with Sisko, and that's fun. There's some that Shatner like Ghost wrote, which are not so great, about Kirk like living after generations. It's whatever, but I'm thinking it's 2002, it's early 2000s, and I think that you could really get a lot of mileage out of a franchise crossover that's years in the making, and it's from one of these books. And I would adapt the novel where Star Trek crosses over with X-Men, and you just keep all of the same casting, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Halle Berry as Storm, and James Marsden as Cyclops, and all this stuff. And you would just adapt that book where, Picard meets Professor X, and it's great because Patrick Stewart plays both of them. Just do a Lindsay Lohan in The Parent Trap and have them meet each other. Like, I had to get you back for Jumanji in The Princess Bride.
I was sitting here like, is he serious? Like,
no, this is not my pitch.
Oh my gosh.
You did the Jumanji Princess Bride thing. I had to, by the way, that's real, by the way. The book.
The book exists. We've both read it. Yes.
Yeah. It's so, but that is in fact not my pitch.
I was just like, no. I was
Yeah,
like,
most
no,
the
no.
audience was too. If you see any analytics where they drop off at this moment in the episode, you know, no. Um,
Oh
uh,
my gosh.
I would do a Star Trek film about the Romulans. I'd have it be very Romulan centric. In reality, this is my real pitch now.
Okay.
So my original title for this movie is way too long.
Are
But
you replacing Nemesis? Are you doing this instead of
I am. I'm
Nemesis then?
doing
Okay.
I wouldn't overload Romulan stuff. I'd replace Nemesis. It would still happen after First Contact and Insurrection.
Okay.
And instead of leaning out of events like I did in Insurrection, I'd lean in. I'd lean far in. Um, you know,
I interrupted you during your title. I feel bad about that.
Oh, yeah. So my long title for this movie is Star Trek Enter Arma Einem Sealant Legis, which is a Latin phrase that shows up in Deep Space Nine about Romulan stuff. But we'll kill that and call it Star Trek: The Price of Peace. So, like we were saying in Star Trek Insurrection, there's this war going on in the Deep Space Nine show called the Dominion War, and the Federation's losing a whole bunch. The Romulans are neutral in this war. These very secretive, non-trusting people are very neutral in this war. And Captain Sisko, who's the main character of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, starts to speculate, what if I got the Romulans into the war on our side and they started beating back the Dominion? What would happen then? And there's this character on Deep Space Nine named Garrick, who I mentioned earlier, who is a plain and simple tailor, heavy air quotes, who is actually just a Cardassian former spy and has all this clandestine knowledge and all this kind of stuff. And this isn't my pitch. This is an actual episode of Deep Space Nine. Garrick convinces Sisko to assassinate a Romulan senator, to kill him and blame it on the Dominion so they could bring the Dominion into the war. So Garrick plants a bomb on his ship, and Sisko is just monologuing to the camera for the whole episode about how he was dragged into this conspiracy and all of this. And the episode ends with computer, erase that entire personal log. Screen cuts to black, and the Romulans are now in the war on the good guy's side because Sisko did this assassination thing. So I would follow the consequences of that a bit. So I'd replace Star Trek Nemesis, and we would start with the Enterprise E and Picard and all of that crew orbiting Cardassia. Because the Dominion War has concluded. Cardassia is in ruins at the end of the Dominion War, because they were some of the belligerents on the enemy side. And it starts with the captain's log, just like an episode of Star Trek would. Captain's log, stardate, blah blah blah. We're orbiting Cardassia to give aid, but the captain's log is interrupted by a small skirmish with some Jem'Hadar Dominion fighters that haven't given up. So we get some bits of the Enterprise E crew handling things super well. Jem'Hadar ship is getting away and they're giving chase at warp, and like 5 Romulan warbirds decloak in front of it and just blast it away. The Romulan captain hails Picard and says, we need to talk on a secret channel. And Picard goes alone into his ready room and has a Romulan captain conversation with Romulan captain. Romulan captain, I would cast Jeffrey Matthew Settle, who he was another guy on Band of Brothers, which Tom Hardy came from before this. And he plays like this cold-hearted guy who's a real person named Captain Spears. And I think he'd be great as a cold-hearted Romulan. Anyway, Picard takes this call in his ready room. We don't see the conversation. The audience doesn't know what's going on. The crew, like Riker and everybody, starts to speculate what they could be discussing. Like Worf is like, they're obviously, in conflict with each other. And Troy is like, I sense nothing but good intentions, all this kind of stuff. And we get our usual discussion, right? The warbirds cloak and fly away. Picard orders the Enterprise to go to Deep Space Nine. Picard, everyone's like, oh, what's going on? Picard's like, I'm not going to tell you. He only wants to talk to Geordi. So he gives him a special project, and we don't know what that special project is yet, So it's all very mysterious. Has Picard gone off the deep end? Is he doing stuff that's bad? I don't know. We arrive to Deep Space Nine. We get a bit of Worf and the Deep Space Nine crew like re-meeting. Picard takes the Romulan captain, the Romulan warbirds show up, and some Romulan humans mixed security team to look for Garrick, because apparently the Romulans are looking for him. Maybe they found out what happened in that episode that I was talking about where he assassinates the guy. We get some moments with the Deep Space Nine people.
Now I'm assuming so you're following, of course, Deep Space Nine's finale, right? So Cisco is gone. He's not there anymore.
Cisco is dead to everyone. He's off in a wormhole somewhere, but he's dead to everyone. Yeah.
Yes. We get some moments. It's Kira, it's Bashir. Who else do you have there?
Quark is still there.
Quark, of course, yes.
Jake Cisco is still around, maybe if you want to have a bit with him. But I think it would be really funny. In Deep Space Nine, there's this character named Morn who always sits at the bar and never talks.
Yeah.
They're always like, oh, I just had this conversation with Morn. And they look at him and he's just like shakes his head. He does not speak. I think it would be hilarious if during this thing, for a little brevity, if Morn says like 2 words, or like, no, or like, the Billy Crystal Mime thing from Spinal Tap. He's like, what am I, your secretary? I also think it would be really funny if Morn was voiced by Weird Al Yankovic, just as an aside. But they'll run into different people like Kira and Bashir. Bashir says that Garrick has disappeared because they're very close friends. Then a figure in black ambushes Picard and the Romulans, and they have a shootout on the promenade in Deep Space Nine. They phaser him to stun, and in the aftermath, Picard takes him on board the Enterprise. This is a character named Sloan from Deep Space Nine, who is the head of Section 31, which is like an inside part of Starfleet. It's like the CIA inside the CIA, super evil stuff. Yeah. And if you've been watching the show, they've been messing with the Romulans a whole bunch. They were pretty darn happy about the assassination of that senator. And the Romulans are kind of catching on to some of this stuff now. The entire Federation fleet warps in around Deep Space Nine, and Picard gets a call from the Admiralty that he's under arrest, and they tell Riker to stand the Enterprise down because they don't want Picard colluding with the Romulans, and we still don't know what's going on. And they're like, Riker, stand the Enterprise down, or give up your career or whatever. Don't you want a command of your own? And Riker basically tells them to F off, and he's ready to fight to the death. Picard beams onto the Enterprise from Deep Space Nine and just says, "Now, Mr. LaForge," and the Enterprise cloaks along with all of the Romulan warbirds, because he's had the special project he was having Geordi working on was getting a cloaking device to work in for the from the Romulans, and they set a course for Earth. Picard sits down everyone in his ready room like he did in every episode of TNG. He's like, here's what's going on. Suggestions. He recounts the events of In the Pale Moonlight. He's like, Captain Cisco, who I met once. He apparently arranged the assassination of this Romulan senator. And the Romulans are, realizing now, because of some evidence or whatever, that they only fought the Dominion and got into this war because they were, tricked by this thing. They're now aware. They're now totally aware of this. They're aware of Section 31, these super CIA guys, and they're pretty darn pissed about it. Picard is angry about this too, because Picard's an up-and-coming straight guy. He's very honorable. He would hate all of this. And so he takes an opposition to it. And he wants to help these Romulans get to the bottom of what's really going on. All of this espionage stuff that was going on in an adjacent show. And he believes that the parties responsible should be brought to justice. So the final act of this whole thing is them on Earth in a sort of a cat and mouse thing on Earth, where all of the authorities are looking for Picard because he's some kind of fugitive in all this. The crew is running around Earth, which we don't often see in these films, looking for evidence that bombing was actually planned by a Starfleet officer, which would be the treachery of the highest order. They discover that Garrick is being kept on Earth as a prisoner of Section 31. They break him out of custody, and he agrees to testify about Section 31's dealings with the Romulans, because they try to kill other people in the Romulan Senate too. And Section 31 plans to invade the Romulan Empire right after the Dominion. And so he agrees to testify about this. Garrick does, in exchange not for his own immunity, but for Captain Sisko's absolution, because Sisko was complicit in this, and for aid for Cardassia, which he cares about more than.
Oh, that's very sweet. Yeah.
So they are attempts to transmit Garrick's like testimony story, a holographic projection, whatever, to the entire quadrant to get the truth out with this like beaming, news transit satellite around the Earth. And there's a final showdown in Earth orbit between the Enterprise and a bunch of other Federation ships. And the Enterprise has the Romulans on its side because they're trying to get to the bottom of this thing that happened to their people. They were tricked, terribly by Captain Sisko and Garrick. There's a last minute race to this transmission station. Somebody presses a button, the transmission goes out. And we cut to hard cut to black, and then fade into like 1 month later or whatever. The Romulans are rebuilding and are still pretty miffed, but not going to start a war over this because there was this transmission of the truth. Picard is sitting in some admiralty's office or whatever, and they're offering him a promotion to the rank of admiral, and he's like, you're the same admiralty that supported Section 31, which has all been dismantled by this point, and you were against me in this whole thing. He turns it down and requests a different command, and he leaves the Enterprise, and Riker is put in charge of it and all of this kind of stuff, and Picard ends his career. And we see this with voiceover with the space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the whatever. Except Picard is on board the Stargazer, which was his old ship before the Enterprise, and he's going to go out and just do science stuff in his old age. And that's how I want that character sent off. So yeah, cat and mouse game, Romulan stuff, connection to Deep Space Nine. Not many connections to Voyager. But I sure as hell wouldn't do the X-Men, and I think you're pretty proud of me for that. So
I'm so excited about that because I was just like, no.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think of this Romulan-centric kind of thing?
I love the central theme of it. Like, I love that you have the Romulans here. I love that the Romulans are very secretive, conniving type people. And I love that the quest for the truth really staves off a war. I think that that's a beautiful turn of events and just a fantastic central theme that you put in here. I think I would want a couple more character moments from the TNG crew.
Oh, yes.
So I'd like to see Riker and Troy get married if you're replacing Nemesis. I think that following up on that would be nice.
Yeah. There's not a great place that I have created to put it in.
You could still do it right at the beginning.
Or end it with their wedding.
Or end it with their wedding. Yeah, end it with their wedding and then have everybody be going off their kind of separate ways. I think it would be really lovely if Crusher came with Picard on the
I think it would too. I think that's a great idea on the Stargazer. Yeah.
Okay. And then I would say if we can get, because one of the things that the original series films did really nicely was bringing back some of the really minor characters into roles. So if we can bring back Ogawa, Barclay, when they're like running around on Earth and trying to hide and stuff, and it's like, oh, who can we trust and stuff, and then it's like, oh, Nurse Ogawa's there. I think that would be lovely to have like just a little moment with them.
Ogawa or Barclay. Barclay, in Voyager kind of went against Admiral Paris's, whatever, to contact Voyager. So he's already kind of at odds with leadership. You put him in there. That works. That works well. Yeah.
I was trying to think if there's a way to tie in Voyager, because you did Deep Space Nine really well. And the only thing I can think is like, again, having like Tuvok and Janeway, like searching on Earth for Picard or something. I don't know if I like that though.
I thought while I was making this, because a moment I've always loved from the finale of Voyager is when they are coming back to Earth. There is like they come out of a wormhole, transwarp conduit or whatever, and it's Voyager and a Borg ship. And the whole Federation fleet is just there. Yes. And the Borg ship is just like, whoop, nope. And they nope out and turn around. I think I was trying to think of a way, like during the final conflict where it's Picard versus all the rest of the Federation ships, if they're there around Earth in the Voyager finale because of this. Like if you could tie it in to that. But it kind of kills the tension of the final thing for this. So I'm not really sure what to do with that. Yeah, I think that you could have a lot of fun with it.
Yes.
I don't bring as many characters into it, and I fall into some of the pitfalls that like Generations and Insurrection do, where, you know, I haven't given anyone like, you know, I haven't given everyone a big moment. And I've left my, you know, most favoritist character Data basically by the wayside for this whole thing. You know, it's just a rough outline. You could put in whatever you want, but yeah.
I mean, if Brent Spiner doesn't want to come back, you could have Data like sacrifice himself or whatever to do something, to do the transmission at Fries' positronic net.
Yeah, you could do a lot of stuff. But really it's only like my uber favorite characters from other stuff coming in. So you got a moment with Bashir. Not that I really like Morn, but I thought that would be funny.
That was
great. Mostly I just really like Garrick. He's such a great character. If you haven't seen Deep Space Nine and you're a Star Trek person, just go watch the damn thing. It's rough at the start, but it gets much better, and it's the best there is. So I'd lean a little harder into it. Yeah,
man, that sounds awesome. I would watch the heck out of that. That sounds so much better than Nemesis. So
that's not hard. The X-Men one would have been better than Nemesis.
God.
I mean, come on.
I can't believe you got me back. I was like, no.
Well, you got me with Jumanji. Maybe we'll do a special episode in the future. No, we won't. This is a terrible idea, but maybe we'll do a special episode in the future where we we're forced to pitch the X-Men Star Trek movie. That's a bad idea.
Oh, you know what would be fun is if we made each other pitch it. If I was like, you have to pitch Jumanji Princess Bride, and I have to pitch
X-Men Star
Trek.
You have an easier time with X-Men Star Trek, I think.
I think I would.
Yeah. Anyway, that's our pitches, everybody. Which one do you like better?
Yeah.
What elements would you fix about our pitches? It's your turn to fix stuff. Let us know down in the comments in the doobie.
Yeah. Do you like Star Trek Invasion or Star Trek The Price of Peace, which is very nice alliteration there that you've got going
on. It's the second time I've used the price of something in the title of a film.
Yeah.
But I like it quite a bit, and it's much better than my original title, which was Inter Arma Einem Silent Legis, which is Latin for "In times of war, the law falls silent."
Why don't you just call it that? That's great.
It's still long, even in English.
Wow.
And it is already the title of an episode about Romulans in Section 31. So it's a little contrived. But yeah, that's what I do. God, we're nerds.
Yeah, we are.
Hate us.
Yeah. So, and let us know what characters we've left out and be like, Chakotay needs his own movie or whatever. Like, go ahead, write it down there.
How about one about Captain Archer? Yeah, yeah.
Oh man. Well, as always, we hope that this finds you well. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll be doing some awesome stuff in the future because everything we do is awesome. And thank you for spending your time with us. We hope that this finds you well. Have a good one, everybody.
See ya.